Hello everyone. For this unit or this activity, I want to focus on learning how to draw the human figure. And I found in a magazine this image of this guy who's standing straight forward. He's going to work out fine for our first drawing. It is more difficult to draw a figure that's turned or three-quarter view or seated. So in this case, this is the perfect beginner stance for me to work with. He does have 1 foot forward. His weight is primarily on one leg here, so that'll give a little bit of interest to what we're doing. But when I look at a figure, whether it's in real life or by magazine image, I always want to identify the eye formation, which is the line of the shoulder, the spine, and the hip. Now he's wearing his jeans lower on his hips, so right at the belt line is where that hip line would be. So I always like to, I never start with drawing the shape of the person's head. I want you to avoid that. That is like the last thing you put on, because typically people are going to oversize the head and then don't fit the body on to the figure. So when I look at the figure, I want to kind of divide the figure in half, and that's going to be right at his belt, which is right where the halfway mark for this figure is. So if you measure, you know, that section is about even in height. So right at the hip line is going to be in the middle. So I'm going to place, and I want my figure to fill the sketchbook page. So I'm going to place the hip line, the bottom of my eye formation. Maybe you can't see that. I'll make that a little darker. So there's the hip line. And then we have the shoulder line above that. And again, these, if we were doing this in class, I would have you working very quickly. We'd be doing some 30-second sketches to figure out the proportions of the figure and the gesture. But for our purposes, of course, we're going slower because you're at home. So I've got my shoulder, spine, and hip line in place. Now from here, I can start to place, I'm just working quickly enough to place the parts of the body. So I want to capture the gesture as quickly as I can. And this would be something that you would do with if you were working with a live model. Now, because I'm not working with a live model, there's the knee. I'm working with an image from a magazine. I can have a little bit of time that I can work with this figure. All right, so there I've got the legs in place, the knees in place. And then of course now I can place an appropriate sized head for the figure that I've drawn out. So for this activity, what I would like to see is, it'd be great if you could time it. I'd like to see at least 5 figures that look like this. Now that doesn't take much time at all to do that. So I want to see 5 that are in this stick formation. Again, start with your eye formation. Put the arms and legs in place, finish with the shape of the head, make sure it's an appropriate size. Now the figure should be about, each time you take a measurement of the head, you should be at about 7 to 8 times the height of the figure that creates the height, the proper height. So if you take that measurement and you times it out, and I think I'm right at 8 heads, that's a normal human is going to be 7 to 8 times the height of their head. So 5 figures like that, drawn in this stick formation, that would be the first part of this activity. And again, fill your page with it. This should go from top to bottom. And it'll be a lot of pictures to upload, but maybe I'll have you do actually, you know what, I think I'll have you do them as a, like as a slides, a Google Slides presentation, then turn that in. That way you can put all of your pictures in. Because I'm going to also have you do some follow-ups after you get your stick forms done. All right, so at this point you should have your 5 stick forms like this one finished, and I just went back to this one in particular to show you the next step. I want you to pick 3 that you would like to work with for the next step. And for this step, we're gonna make him look a little more human. So we wanna start by adding more of the detail of the form. So we're gonna place a neck, and a neck is typically, if you don't have to put a face on the form, but if you put a face on the form, the outside corner of the eye is where the width of the neck comes from. So I think you can you don't have to draw that on there to figure it out, but you could certainly know that from the outside corner of the eye is where you're going to create that, that width. All right, so I'm going to make sure my shoulders are in place. I see the armpit is right in here, and the forearm is right in here. So I can start to place that shape in there. Okay, and for this guy, he's got like a cuff on his shirt. I don't need to get into that kind of detail yet, but I do want to start to indicate the shape of the body form. So I'm going to place the elbow. Here's another armpit. That hand is pretty hidden. It's kind of peeking out there a little bit. So we have the waist of the form, comes in here. We've got the belt, which is a bit of a curve. And then we have the jeans. And here in the front, it's nice to kind of use your contouring. If you want to put some contour lines, that's always good to create the look of the shape of the garment. And create the shapes. This goes up and over the shoe. So for this one, once you have your 5 stick forms, I just want you to pick a few that you want to work with to create. You need to do 2. Pick 2 and see if you can create a little bit more detailed form. So I'm going to add just this last boot here. It's got laces in the front. So that's pretty much my guy there. You don't have to put a face or anything, but a little bit of detailing in there is fine. And he's a little rounder on the shoulders than that because that shirt is a little blousier, so kind of fill that out a bit. All right, so I should see you're picking 2 of your 5 and you're kind of putting in your finishing details. So 5 of the stick form and build right on top of it so I can still see your stick form underneath. And then you would have the 2 of the 5 that you want to work with for this step. So you are going to be turning in 7 images altogether, and we'll put them in a Google Slides, 1 slide for each of your images. And then it'd be nice if you could include a picture of the image you worked from as well on each of your slides. So I'll have some information on the activity that goes over what exactly is required. But this is for this beginning figure drawing activity.